items did you guys have? I had one pair of panties for 38 days.
Well, that did evolve. Okay, so that's one update that I feel like definitely needs Erica. You have to give Erica credit for the game that she played.
Why is the silence so loud?
I challenge any of y'all to go 16, 17 days without eating and watch someone eat, take the food, the little bit of fruit that you find on a tree after they've just had a grand buffet. You would lose your SHIT as well.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Ashley Beck. Welcome to the very first episode of Life After Borneo. I am so very excited for this interview today. Joining me, I have two iconic, beautiful, legendary, inspirational women. The list goes on and on. My season 41 besties, Shan Smith and Liana Wallace. How are you doing, ladies?
Hi.
I need to check my pulse when I'm talking to you. I'm like, am I fangirling? Am I okay? Like, what is going on?
I think it's mutual.
Definitely mutual.
So we have so many things to unpack. You both had the chance to play the new era of Survivor. So let's dive right in. I want to know, was Survivor always the dream for each of you? And how many times did you apply? Liana?
Yeah, I sent in one video last summer, and it was definitely a dream for me. Like, it's something that I've wanted to do ever since I was a little girl. It's like me and my brother's thing. It's just like me and my best friend's thing. Like, it's just a thing in my life that I've always loved. And so playing it was absolutely amazing. Obviously, like, I was not prepared for no rice. That was like, oh, okay, we're surviving. So that was something I was not expecting. It was like not how I had imagined it, but still dope.
Awesome. Shan, what about you?
Yeah, like I didn't grow up like wanting to play Survivor, but I grew up watching it for sure. And it wasn't until my mom was like, she was really sick in the hospital, and we had just started her like treatments and stuff like that, and she had like just floated the idea out to me casually, like, you know, you used to watch the show all the time, like, you should apply, like, go and apply. And I was like, Ma, they're not even casting Canadians, like, it's not like that, you know? And then it was like the next year or a couple years later, yeah, it was a couple years later, and my best friend was like, oh my gosh, they're casting Canadians now. And I was like, no, she's like, you gotta apply. So then 2020 like hit, and we were all on quarantine. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna make that Survivor video. And they called. And then I was like, oh, like, okay, like this could actually happen. So definitely a big dream come true, but like not like Liana. Liana was like hoping from a little girl. Like, that's more precious, I feel like. You know, mine was like, this is a possibility as a Canadian? Like, okay, I'm gonna do it.
I love it. And I loved watching you both play. We were all better for it. Did you guys do any special training before you went out to play?
I did. I put on like 12 pounds of like muscle before I went out there, because I was like, I just knew it was gonna be like really like taxing on my body. And I was like, I just needed like a little something extra to get me through. So like, I was like, okay, like, and I wasn't in school or anything. So it was just like, you know, I was just like, you know, prepping, and that was kind of my way of like preparing for it mentally, emotionally, like toughness, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Were you eating a lot, Liana? Because a lot of times people will be like, should I pack on the pounds before I go out there?
Yeah.
Like, were you eating, was it like junk food or like healthy stuff to build muscle?
No, it was like healthy stuff to build muscle, but I was definitely eating like more than I normally eat. Yeah, but it was healthy stuff. It wasn't like junk food.
Got it. Shan, what about you? What'd you do to prepare to go on the show?
You know, I didn't do anything insane. Like, I wasn't gonna try P90X or freaking go to, you know, what are they, CrossFit? Like, I wasn't gonna do anything insane to my body, because I'm like, no, Shan, you will pull something or break something, and then you will not be able to go on the show. So I did not. But I did, like Liana, like beef up for sure. Like, I was eating peanut butter sandwiches and like a lot of pasta at night, a lot of like breads. I don't usually do a lot of gluten, but I had a lot of bread. Like, I would wake up just in the middle of the night, just eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich just to pack on the pounds. Cause I don't like, I don't hold on to weight. It just doesn't stick on me.
Yeah.
So I tried to eat as much as I did. And then, you know, pre-game, I ate like a lot, as much as I really could. I ate cookies. I ate like so much, because I just wanted extra, like, just storage, you know, I just wanted extra storage on me.
It's so funny that you say that, because when I was at Ponderosa, I wasn't even thinking that way. Like, I need to pack on the pounds. I felt like I was so nervous, I couldn't eat. So you were eating at Ponderosa. You were like, I'm going to get this food in my system before I go play the game.
And during quarantine too, like Darla, one of the producers was like, Shan, you know, it seems like they keep giving you a lot of carbs because you're a vegan. Do you want me to tell them to switch it up? I was like, no, honestly, send the carbs. Please send the carbs, you know, trying to work out in that little room that we were quarantined in. And yeah, no, I was nervous for sure. But my biggest concern, like I think I shared somewhere, that like my body would freak out or I'd flare up. So I was like, I need to be healthy. You know, I just need to figure out a way to be healthy and just to have more, because I don't want to be like a rack of bones when I'm out there.
Yeah, and that's a valid concern. So once you guys found out your season was going to be 26 days, you were getting no rice, did you feel like you were going to be robbed of the full Survivor experience since it wasn't 39 days? Or were you just like, I'm just here to play?
I feel like maybe at first you're like, oh, that's weird. Like it's 26 days, like no rice, like whatever. But like when you're there, you're like, nope, this is really real. This is like the exact same as previous, because like your body, like, I think the biggest example is like the duration of the challenges. Like we were not lasting a very long time as compared to previous seasons because we didn't have anything in our bodies, right? So like that tells you comparatively, like it was as intense in a shorter duration. Like, you know what I mean? It was crazy.
I think that I totally agree. Like when I heard 26-day game, I was like, score, like that's great. Like I didn't want to be out there for 39 days because I was so freaked out. But like when Jeff told us that, like I was so freaked out, like that. I mean, going into the game thinking 39 days, I was like, that was my biggest concern. I was like, is my body gonna outlast? Like, am I gonna be okay out there? And totally, I was fine. But the 26-day game was like secretly, I was like, yes, that's awesome. Like, no, I'm not worried about it. That sounds great. 26 days, a lot shorter. But then the no rice thing, when I found that out, and then kept finding that out, like I was like, oh, y'all serious? Y'all trying to like take people out for real? So. I mean, you saw that challenge, like it was so funny. I think the Liana, the one where like the little brick is between the head and you're standing your toe. I mean, it was like a 3-minute challenge. Like that.
Like you said, like I trained and stuff. Like I'm like, okay, like I have these strong legs. Like these legs are not gonna give out on me. And I'm up there and it's been like 2 minutes and they are shaking like ferociously. And I'm like, what the hell is going on with my body? Like. Yeah. Literally nothing in there.
Were you guys like eating snails and stuff?
We would catch like little like snails and like crabs, like not many of them. And then like, it's like, you know, we're sharing it amongst like the 4 of us for a while. So, and we had like coconuts and stuff, but really it was just for like the first 8 days, I want to say it was just coconuts. And we found an almond tree, but the almonds were in these big encased shells you had to crack open. And so after that, you're like, for this little almond, it's not a lot of bang for your buck. So what am I doing? And so we were there was nothing in our bodies, truly. Yeah.
Jeannie was kicking it. I mean, she was hooking it up. Like she was like, it was like Jeannie's kitchen, like sushi, like we like, hey, look, I'm being like,
listen, tell me about Jeannie's kitchen. I want to sit down. What's on the menu at Jeannie's kitchen?
I want to put y'all on. Okay, but I have to tell you, like, so we obviously, like you all, we didn't have much. And so, you know, the little crabs, it was like a fiasco. Like one day Sarah caught crabs, but then she left the crabs in the pots, and then the water that we were drinking all smelled like crabs and tasted like crab juice. It was really, really bad. And then she left. She like left us the crab juice and then she left, right? Or got voted out, sorry. And then like Jeannie was like, she went and got the sea slug. But Jeannie was like, Shan, I got you. Like she came up to me, she's like, I got you. I'm gonna hook it up. I got a little seaweed, some salt water. I'm gonna like get this. I'm gonna hook it up. I was like, Jeannie, I'm good. Like I found a lime tree. Like I'm okay, right? And meanwhile, like my lip is cut, bleeding open from like eating so many limes, because that's the only thing that we had was limes and coconuts. And after a while, you get sick of the coconut. So she cooks this sea cucumber, and then she's like, she lifts up the lid, and she's like, oh my God. And so I'm like, what? She's like, don't look. And so like, I'm like, Jeannie, let me see. So she opens it up. This thing had given birth in the pot to like this white creamy stuff and like a little baby. It was really, 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 really gross. Right. If you can stomach this, just got really disgusting. But she wrapped it up and she wrapped it in some seaweed and I couldn't.
You did it? Because it is a delicacy.
It's a delicacy,
no.
But I didn't try it.
I couldn't.
With texture-wise,
but she hooked it up. She hooked it up though.
She hooked it up. Jeannie's kitchen. Okay, I'm gonna have to find out about Jeannie's kitchen. Liana, I want to ask you, what was it like being in college watching yourself on TV?
Yeah. Oh my God. That was so weird. It was really weird because you're on a college campus, and the thing about Survivor is like a lot of people might watch the show, but like it's not like you don't know about it unless like it comes up. Like it's not like you know all the people that are watching Survivor like that. So I would just slowly, like, I think I was in my international business class, and like some guy like knew, I did never talk to him before, and he just comes up to me, he's like, blink if you won. And I'm like, what? Like it was just weird. Like stuff like that would happen, or I would walk on campus and like a grad student would come up to me and be like, oh my God, you're Liana. And I'm like, what? Like, and so it's stuff like that was just very weird to be around so many people that knew about me being on the show. It was really special and cool, but also extremely hard because you're a student and, you know, your professors don't really give a crap that you're on, you know, Survivor. And you know, I would watch the show and then turn around and be doing like, you know, projects and things like that late at night. So definitely really taxing and hard, but also like, again, my dream. So just the timing of it was like really interesting and cool. It was like kind of the best of both worlds, if you will.
Yeah, being in college and being on a show, pop off. Shan, I want to ask you similarly, what was it like being a pastor and sort of the expectations that people put on you and playing Survivor?
I mean, I think that was a little wild. You guys could see probably from the ratchet Facebook comments, but it is what it is. I think the thing is though, like I knew going into the game and coming out of the game that there were going to be strong reactions because I'm a pastor and I was serving in a pretty like a multi-ethnic, multi-intergenerational, like very, very, very diverse like group of individuals, about 10,000 member church, and you know, people that don't vote the same way, don't look the same way, don't talk the same way, have come from different places, you know. And so I know that like even speaking every weekend, you know, it's like it's a fine line because, you know, in this climate politically and socially there's so much happening, and so to speak to both sides is really hard. So I knew playing Survivor, I mean, I've worked with people, so I knew playing Survivor that like there was going to be strong reactions and strong opinions from the kind of gameplay that I wanted to play. And I did. I wanted to be, you know, cutthroat, and I wanted to be fierce. And I knew that people would have a hard time seeing a pastor, not mind you, a woman of color, but like just being a religious figure on screen and being willing to make like tough calls and hard decisions and like being deceptive and manipulative and lying on TV as a pastor is like, you know, I knew people were going to have strong opinions about that. My senior pastor released me. He's like, you go play that game the same way you play Uno or Monopoly with the kids. You know what I mean? You just play your heart out. And so I just knew that the real ones, you know, would be there at the end of the day. And who I am on TV is not who I am in real life. And I don't know, like it was definitely hard, like the comments online, just like people, you know, thinking that I would pastor the way that I play Survivor, which is kind of ridiculous, but some people go there, right? They can't, the dissonance, they can't make a dissonance, they can't divorce the two, right? And I can understand that. But I just knew people that had common sense and that were just like, you know, grounded with some kind of, you know, just common regularity, you know, it would be able to make, you know, the jump and the leap that this is a game. And so my members were just really supportive. I don't think I heard one bad word from a member or a congregation or anybody, just a lot of support, like we're rooting for you, like, yes, continue to kick. It was just these really odd, like far right, alt conservative people. I mean, they always come out with their ratchet behinds with just trash to say, and they're the same people that speak against LGBTQIA and, you know, BLM. And so it's like, I mean, you know, the 10% can always sound so loud. But I think like what was really helpful was just having a ton of support from the Survivor community in other ways, you know, but the 10% can sound so loud. And so like, it just was hard initially, but then after a while I was like, no, these are like the same weirdos that talk about like Antifa and like, you know, all this other crazy stuff, not to point out one thing, but it's like, I just was like, you can't pay it too much mind, you know? So
you can't. And my hat goes off to you, Shannon. I want to say, I'm so proud of you for playing the game that you wanted to play. You said you wanted to be cutthroat, strategic, and do what you had to do. I'm so proud of you for doing that. And it's great to hear that your congregation as well was like supportive, because that's what really matters. The rest of them, it doesn't matter. And I really wish, specifically with the Survivor community, people would take into account that we do read every single thing when we're playing. So can you please just be a little kinder, because it's really hard to read, you know? So a little birdie told me that you guys had more than one outfit.
Well,
yeah.
So can we get an in-game fit check? What items did you guys have? I had one pair of panties for 38 days.
Well, that did evolve. Okay, so that's one update that I feel like definitely needs air. Like, so we did get to, when we were on camp, we had one pair of underwear. But then I forget what it was. It was, I think me and Evie and Tiff were just kind of talking about like, well, I definitely brought it up. I was like, you know, there's a difference between like equity and equality, right? Like equity is giving everybody the same thing. And then equality is giving people what they need based on their needs, right? And so if you're someone with a vagina, like you need different things than someone with a penis. So like, it makes sense to give us like, you know, 2 pairs of underwear because we got stuff going on down there. Yeah. So that was something that changed, and they decided like, yes, it makes sense to give, you know, people that have, you know, a vagina, you know, 2 pairs of underwear. And so that was something cool that I think is going to continue. We were just like chilling one day. They're like, all right, here you go. And we're like, what? Like, so that was pretty cool to be able to see that kind of change. But in terms of like overall wardrobe, I had like a pair of shorts. I had my leggings. I had 2 tops. I had my scarf, and I had my little sweater. And my shoes.
Yeah, we got like, so that came from Yasa's camp that I got my other 2 underwear, I think like maybe 3 or 4 days into the game, which was great. I was like, awesome, like, cause discharge is a thing. But I think I was given, honestly, I was surprised at how much clothing I was given. Of course, they wanted me in my overalls, which can I just say, I don't know why they dressed me like a country bumpkin. Like, I don't know why they did that to me. Like, I grew up in Toronto, living in New York, going back and forth, and like, you can see on Instagram, that's nothing near how, anyways, but they had me looking like Boo Boo the Fool out there. And so like, they gave me the overalls, and they gave me like a bright lime green turtleneck, which I was like, who dresses like this? Like, who do you know that just like,
okay, wait, hold on, Shan. Did you submit those clothes?
No. So I submitted so many things, and everything got shot down. Everything was like, no flannel, no this, no that, no this. And I was like, because I was trying to come up there in some like G.I. Jane like boots and like some black like skinny jeans and like my leather jacket. I don't know what I was thinking, but I wanted to bring Shan to the island, you know? Yes. I was like, they were like, no. So then I kept going through everything, and then I was like, the last thing, I was like, well, I did see some overalls. Oh, Rose, love you in some overalls. And I was like, oh. So then I got overalls. I got all my, and funny story, I was actually on Yellow Tribe initially. So I bought all this stuff for Yellow Tribe. So they're like, bring the overalls, and we want your little scarf. So I was like, okay, I had this like pink rosy kind of scarf. I was on Yellow, because remember, Tiffany was the alternate, so something happened there, right? So I was on Yellow. So then the night before I fly out, I get a call, and they're like, oh, we're switching you to green. Do you have anything green? And I was like, green? Like, I don't wear green, like this complexion, like, are you serious? Like, no, we can rock anything. But I was like, I don't like green, it's not my color. I was so happy when I heard yellow, right? And so I was talking to Caitlin, and Caitlin was like, yeah, you know, I think yellow would be really great on you. And then when she switched to green, I'm like, Caitlin, what happened to yellow would be really great on me? She's like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. So she's like, do you have anything green? So I'm like going through like my boyfriend's kids' like clothes, and I'm trying to find anything green. I find what I can, and they're like, don't worry, we'll buy you stuff. So I went with overalls. I went with like my belt. And when I got there, in my bag was overalls, my belt, a green turtleneck. That's what I put on that day, that first day. And then I had 2 shorts, a denim pair of brown shorts, a light, like flimsy pair of gray shorts. I had a pink loose top, and I had another green fitted top. And they gave me my little scarf. I guess they wanted me accessorized, and I used everything, so.
I want to transition and discuss how the 2 of you met in the game, and what was one of the most powerful moments of your season. I know Black women in America and in Canada and around the world love seeing that. So I just want to know if you both can sort of speak to how important it is to have moments like that depicted on mainstream television.
I think it's just super important. I think like, more often than not, you see like people, like especially like Black women, like arguing like in reality television as opposed to like true sisterhood. And when I met Shan, like I think, you know, what's crazy about like the hike, and we joke about this, is like we were trauma bonding. Like going up that hill was like really, really hard. Like this is a huge hill, and we had just done a challenge, and we're just like I was so excited to finally be able to meet Shan. You don't know anything about, you know, these other people that you're playing with. You get to observe them a little bit in pregame. But Shan was always just like, I had so many questions for her because she had outlasted all these people on her tribe. I'm like, Shan is still here. This girl is still here. I want to work with her. And so being able to kind of go up that mountain and like, you're out of breath, but I just had so many questions. I was like, you know, what has it been like? What's going on with the vote tonight? Like, where are you from? How old are you? Like, we're just like really connecting. And when we get to the top, you know, she's talking about her mom. And before I went out there, and we're looking over this beautiful, beautiful ocean. Before I went out there, my mom was like, Liana, like when you look at the ocean, like think of me, like that will be like your representation of me. And I had all these different elements that were parts of my family when I was out there because I wanted to stay connected. And so she's talking about her mom and how, you know, like literally her mom's, you know, dying wish was talking about like Survivor and her on Survivor. And I'm seeing my mom, and it just broke me down. Like we just, you know, walked up this huge hill, we're exhausted, and there's this amazing other Black woman that I'm here with, and we both have amazing mothers that we're extremely connected to. And so it just felt kind of like, okay, like this is where your game's gonna start, Liana. Like this is, you know, this is your partner, like we can do this. And so that's really how it felt, and it was incredibly special, and like honestly one of the highlights of the game to be able to do that with Shan. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I think like the closest I've seen to something like this would maybe be Sari and Michaela, but it didn't last long. You know, it didn't last as long, like it didn't last long enough. And I missed them from the screen, you know, like as soon as Michaela was gone, it was really hard. And when Sari was gone, I mean, that was hard too. Incredible season, of course, but it definitely was like, just, I've never seen two Black women on reality TV other than Big Brother, you know, like kind of come together and work together. And they are, like Liana said, like they're always pitted against each other, or they're forced to compete, you know. And with Liana, it was like, I mean, just seeing her during pregame, you know, I had so many questions for her and about her, and like, you know, you can't do a lot in pregame, you can't talk to each other, but there were moments, you know, between us. I remember like, there was one moment in particular, we were in the tent getting ready to do press. It was the first press day. And, I think like Liana—
I brought my rings.
Yeah, Liana had brought her rings. But before that, before the rings, she was like in the tent putting on like lotion or something. And my skin was looking ashy. And I just looked at my skin and I think she handed me her lotion. And so I used it. No one saw that. But if they had, they would have flagged it for sure, because 15 minutes later, Liana comes back from doing her press, and she had worn all these rings in her press, and she like transfers it, and her like it spills out of her bag. So I'm like trying to pick them up and signal to her that they're on the floor, and then we get called out for that and like really get scolded for it, because you're not allowed to talk, because any of those things can be considered as, you know, kind of gameplay. And so I just knew like, you know, well, you know, when we see each other walking down the street in a neighborhood that is predominantly, you know, our cousins and not us, you know what I mean? It's like, what's up, girl? You okay? You got blink twice, you're right. You know what I mean? It's like that. Same with the grocery store. When I'm in Whole Foods, I see a brother or a sister, I'm like, look at us up in here. You know what I mean? Like up in Whole Foods, not a Safeway, you know, not a Wegmans, but in a Whole Foods, you know? So it's like those moments, you know, it's like game recognized game, you know, we see each other, I see you in your skin kind of thing. And like when we got off the boat to go on our trek, like I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to talk to you for so long. And of course it was like an immediate hug. I don't know if I would have hugged like anybody else if it was anyone else. Like I'm just not sure I would have had that, you know, but I was like with bated breath, wanted to meet her and wanted to connect with her, and was so glad that she'd survived the votes and that I was still standing. And so we're walking up this trek, and like, yeah, Liana's asking me a million questions, and I'm trying to like give her the answers, but I'm out of breath. We were so out of breath going up that hill. And then we get to the top, and so she shares about her mom, and I didn't even know, like, I mean, I knew that part, but it's like my mom, you know, her thing was like she wanted to always be scattered on the ocean, her ashes. So when I look at the ocean, I always think of my mom, right? So it was like there was so much happening emotionally. You don't realize how vulnerable you are when you're out there. And I can't tell you how much it meant to me to connect with a person of color, a woman of color, at my like most vulnerable moment, feeling like I was gonna go back to people who would potentially maybe blindside me or want to flip on me, even though I did have, you know, what I had in my pocket. Like it was just still, I was still concerned about it, you know? So just to know, and I even said to Liana, like, if I'm not here to next vote, you can't just Riccard kind of thing, right? Because I was feeling it a little bit. But then like, yeah, we just had this moment, and I had spoken to like a few different people about my mom a little bit, but not as much as with Liana. And she was just the first person to just be open and talk to me about it. Cause I think a lot of people are weirded out when they hear that your mom passed away or someone that you love passed away. But she was just really, I don't know, present. And just, I was present for her. And it was just, you know, when I left that day, I didn't feel like I was playing by myself anymore. In a really transcendent way. Like I just didn't feel like I was playing for myself. And I remember an EP saying like, you gave away like the advantage. Like, why would you give up an advantage? And I was like, that's like my little sister all of a sudden. Like we didn't talk after that until we got to merge, you know, but I loved her, you know, that's as simple as I can put it. So
I love that. Thank you both so much for being vulnerable and transparent and allowing us to be a part of that moment. It was amazing. Every time you guys cried, I cried like it was me out there.
Which was a lot.
all the time. When you guys got back to camp from having this beautiful moment, very emotional, feeling connected, were you grilled by your tribes?
Yeah. I mean, for me, like I told like a lie to make them believe that I didn't like have anything and I didn't, you know, get anything. And it went pretty smoothly. Like they were like, okay. I think Tiff was a little bit skeptical about it, but I was like, yeah, like I don't, you know, I said what I had to say and like they bought it, and it was like, okay, cool. Now I can, you know, I didn't know what it was yet. Cause when I got to camp, I didn't have it yet, the advantage. So I just, you know, I told them, that we knew how, you know, that, the island worked. And so I just kind of like said what I had to say, and they bought it, and it was like, no issues, like done, moving on. So yeah, they had no idea when I get back to camp.
Shan, what about for you? Did they grill you? Were they like, what happened? What'd you get?
I mean, luckily for me, like I was able to be just completely honest, right? Like I told them that like I didn't take it, I didn't play, I kept my vote, which was true. And it's always easier to tell the truth, and people, you know, feel connected when you tell the truth. So I was able to kind of just say my piece. But I knew from the airport when I saw Liana, I knew from pregame, I knew like, people can't see us working together. We're the only two Black women out here. Like it's an immediate target. I mean, clearly that went out the window at the merge, but when I got back to camp, I was definitely not trying to have Riccard up in my, like all the tea. I wasn't pouring tea for Riccard. Like, I just love her. Didn't know. I was not at all. I was like, she's cool. Like, she was nice, but like, and I think we can maybe work with her, but who knows? I want to meet Tiffany. I want to meet Evie, you know? So those conversations were had, but yeah, I was definitely trying to play down my connection to Liana, which just, again, did not last long. So.
Well, that speaks volumes to your iconic social game, Shan. You were moving chess pieces when they were playing checkers. Okay, this is gonna get a little nitty gritty, but I have to ask because I've seen it floating around. A lot of people were upset that the Black Alliance, the camp out, was initially referred to as the Person of Color Alliance because there were other people of color on the beach. How did you eventually settle on calling it the camp out or the Black Alliance? And what was the feeling on the beach about the Person of Color Alliance?
Well, okay, so I think there's like, I think that gets down to a lot of editing, right? I think I said to have like, I think I used the term POC in like one of like the edits of me talking. Like I was like, you know, you're the only person of color in your classroom, me too. I said something like that, I think. And so then, you know, you have on social media, you know, Big Brother had just happened. Now we're named the camp out, but it's not like as players out there, we're like, what's our name? Like, what are we referred to? I think, you know, there is like other people of color were out there, and that deserves to be, you know, named and claimed in itself. At the time though, the Black Alliance, when we got to merge, the Black Alliance was raised to me by Shan and then Danny. And it was just something they're like, this would be a really good thing to bring home to the Black community given the year like 2020. So immediately with the basis of a year like 2020, we're centering Blackness. This is for Black people. Yes, there are other POC on this camp, but what was discussed was for the Black community because our house is on fire. This is what takes precedence right now. So that's what was said. I think in the edit, I might have referred to like, oh, other POC, you know, poor word choice on my part to be out there and say that when it is a Black Alliance. But yes, there are other people of color on the camp, and that is beautiful in itself to have that. But the way it was raised in the nature of the alliance, it was a, you know, Black Alliance. So I think that's super important to kind of like distinguish. because, you know, they are different, but they also both deserve space and airtime to be discussed and talked about, you know. Could there have been a POC alliance that happened? Yeah, like absolutely. But what happened when we got to camp, it was raised as a Black alliance. So that's what the alliance that was for. And I know, Shan, like, I'm sure you have stuff to add too.
No, that's so good. Everything that you said, I'm like, yeah, for sure. I think how the kind of the timeline of it was a little bit like Liana and I had talked about, like, man, when we were on the track, like, it'd be so good to pull in Danny and Deshawn and do, you know, like us the Final Four, like, let's get it, you know, for the year that we've had. We were all in for that, but we agreed also we'll let them bring it up to us if that's what they want to do. Otherwise, like, I had the back of my mind, like, it was me, Liana, Riccard, you know what I mean? Or just me and Liana, because at the end I wanted 2 dope queens. That's what I had in my mind. And so then we get to the merge, and, you know, Danny and Deshawn, they come to us with, you know, George Floyd, and they call names, and they're like, let's do this. And me and Liana, of course, we're like, yeah, like, let's do this. And I really wanted to do it. So we, you know, they were singing that tune, and we jumped on, and we were like, yeah, let's lock in. And so that's what happened. I do want to say there was, while we were centering Blackness, and there was, like, you know, this kind of move for us to work together, there was a little bit of drama about it initially, because, you know, Nasir really felt like he identified with being like a Black person, you know, and, you know, obviously race is not necessarily what's bloodline, but how you present, right? What you see, that's kind of that's the construct, that's how it works. And so there was a little bit of drama there where, like, I think Danny and Deshawn were kind of discounting Nasir as a Black person, which, you know what I mean, it is what it is, and people have different opinions on that. But there was drama even there with, like, this whole idea of, like, well, why can't I be in? And even at one point I had to have a conversation with Riccard, and he was like, well, I'm a person of color, like, you know, they're like, as a Puerto Rican person, like, with there's Afro roots there. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't present as a POC. You don't present as a Black person, right? So there was that kind of drama. So I could see why, even outside of the conversations that were aired and the edits, why people would have, like, concerns, like, what about Erica? Is she not a person of color? Why? And it's like, yeah, let's make, there are different privileges, right? Like the what do they call it? The perfect minority, like the model minority, you know, and, like, being a Black person, and what, like, all those different things, they're not considered the same in the world that we live in. And for sure, even on the island, that was difficult. That was hard to work around. And there were conversations with Nasir that I had to have as to why Danny felt that way, or why Deshawn felt that way. And that was awkward. That was uncomfortable, because I necessarily didn't feel that way. You know what I mean? Clearly I would have wanted to work with Nasir. So
I want to focus on your individual games. I'm going to start with you, Shan, but I need you to start us off with your hit single, The Shanthem. Can we get a little snippet?
You ready?
I'm ready. I'm about to make it.
Can I get a beat drop? I mean, this is like a Black Girl Magic kind of. Can I get a?
Hey.
I hear a little Liana with the shakers in her hands. Like,
were you nervous, Shan, about emerging as such a strategical threat early on? Or were you like, I'm just here to play and I'm gonna work with the cards that are dealt to me?
Yeah, bottom line. I mean, like, I didn't go into the game thinking I was gonna be this boss. I just didn't. Like, I talked a big game, but I mean, anyone that read any of the stuff that came out after in my interviews knows that, like, I almost left during pregame. Like, literally almost got on a plane and left, because I was so freaked out that, like, maybe my MS would get out of control, and I'd been in remission, and I didn't want to, like, put that at risk. So I was just like, no, I don't know. But I had a conversation with Jeff, and he was like, when you get on that, he's like, cry now. It's like, but when you get on that beach, you know, you just open that chest with the S on your, you know, your chest, and you just represent, and you become Wonder Woman out there. And that image, that was a real good word picture for me. Like, I just thought about Wonder Woman. Like, I thought about Serena Williams. I thought about every badass Black woman that I've ever kind of, you know, seen, Beyonce, all of them. I was like just conjuring all that energy when I was out there, and just thinking, like, let me just give this everything that I've got. Like, the way that I live my life, like, let me just go at it with everything that I've got. I've only got this one shot. I may never play again because of health, or because of life, or because of circumstance, or because of production. Like, you know what I mean? They may not love me. And so, like, I'm like, let me just give it everything that I got. And so I never in any way was like, oh, I'm going to go and dominate. I was concerned. I was like, maybe people want to work with me because when they hear Christian, you know, it's like, it's a turnoff. The word church is like there's a lot of church hurt, you know what I mean? So people, like, when they hear Christian or pastor, it's like, it doesn't scream safe space. So you know, when I first got out there, I just really wanted to assure the people around me that I knew would potentially feel like I would other them, like a Jeannie or a Riccard, because of their orientation, that, like, that's just not who I am. Like, I want to rock with you, like, because of who you are. And I mess with Jeannie hard. Like that girl will be in my wedding party. You know what I mean? Like I love that girl so much. And so like, and I'm affirming as a pastor. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that. So like that was my gameplay, was really just letting those around me know that like I see you, I respect you, understand you, like, and all dignity is owed to your personhood. Like just wanting to make sure that people felt that from me. And then after a while, I just realized that people weren't thinking as much as I was about the game. So then I was like, and then I saw just stupid mistakes. So then I was like, I could really play this game. So I was like, you know, and then I just started, I guess, thinking and talking about it. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't think I would do well. And clearly I lost, but yeah. So I don't know what else to say about that. Riccard was the only person on UA that I could feel like I felt like I could strategize with.
In terms of Riccard, was there a point ever where you were like, we can dominate this game together? Or was it always, we're gonna have to cut each other's throats at some point? And why, if so?
Okay, so the first time I thought about cutting Riccard was actually after I met Liana. Because I was like, this would be a good pivot, like just to be a really good pivot to just drop him and just work with Liana. But Riccard was just, I don't know why, but I mean, I have my reasons, my thoughts on it, but Riccard just, no one liked him. I don't know what it was, but when we were out there, just like, no one got along with him. And I could just see like people were bristled, like just really, really, really hard to connect with him. But I really liked Riccard. Like I just dug him. I dug his vibe and I liked his story. And I thought, you know, we connected over the fact that, you know, he struggled with hearing in one ear and I had MS. And so we shared that. And our relationship really went deep. We spent we slept next to each other. We talked late at night. Like, so there was a lot there. So I wanted to definitely move forward with him. You can't move forward in the game Survivor on your own. You need someone to work with. And so I really thought like, yeah, me and him could potentially go to the end together. If we could be the next Wendell and Dom. Like that's what I was thinking in the back of my head, you know? And yeah, that was for sure a thing. But I was very much aware and very cognizant even before talking with Liana that there were other Black players that I wanted to connect with. Now, once I saw Yasa vote on Abraham, I was like, oh, JD's touchable. Okay, I don't have to take this little clown with me. No, I'm just playing. I love JD, but there were just some moments. I was like, okay, we're just gonna pretend that the beginning didn't happen and just move forward with the final four, you know? But I never wanted to get rid of Riccard because he was so strategic and because I felt like people like, do you regret, Shan, taking Riccard over Jeannie? And it's like, even to this day, like in my heart, I would have wanted to take Jeannie. But Jeannie is so honest. Like when I came with the blind side to get out Sarah, Jeannie went and told Sarah. Jeannie said to Sarah, play your shot in the dark because we're all voting for you tonight. Like I just heard that tonight, and I was like, Jeannie, like I could not take that into the merge, like because my game would have been just like, you know, killed. So Riccard was like keep my enemies close kind of thing. But then like I just had mad love for him as well. So it was fun playing with him. And yeah. Well, I mean, the idea was to keep UA numbers up, but that just didn't happen, right? And so I was working overtime to make sure that JD and Riccard got along, to make sure that Jeannie and Riccard got along, to make sure that Brad and Riccard got along, like because everybody wanted to take him out. Like from week to week, it was always his name, and I was like, no, he's good at this. We need him for puzzles. We need him for this. We need him for that. Like, and really trying to. I mean, JD and Riccard, that was probably like where it was the most evident. It was like. Those two, I mean, it was every 15 minutes, something was popping off every 15 minutes. And it was every 15 minutes, I was having a conversation with either JD or Riccard. So, yeah, it was like, he was also a little bit of a meat shield for me in that way, you know, whereas like no one was thinking about Shan because nobody liked Riccard. So I wasn't trying to make sure everybody was like best friends with Riccard, but at the same time, I didn't want them ready to take out Riccard because I knew I wanted to work with him. So it was a fine balance. And I think I was doing a lot on UA, like a lot of conversations and a lot of strategizing without making it seem like that was happening. So
like you said, you can't journey through Survivor alone. You know, you have to have partnerships and people that you really connect with. Whose damn advantage was it? Was it JD's? Was it yours? Was it Riccard's? On the beach, how did people feel? Because we see you and Riccard getting into it. I was like, oh my gosh. Whose advantage was it?
Well, I mean, like you're never gonna guess like who the middleman is on this, but like the funny thing is that so JD gets the advantage, and of course he tells me right away that he didn't get an advantage. Tells us all this whole long story, and then what's that, JD? Like hanging out of his drawers. Like, how do you gonna walk back into camp with it hanging out your drawers? And first of all, the cameraman, ain't nobody gonna say nothing to you. Like, that's some shade. Like on camera, that's some shade. But like, he walks back into the camp and is hanging out with me, pulls out, and we have this conversation. So then, like, from the moment that I discovered that he had the advantage, I'm like, I want the advantage. Like, I am gonna get that advantage. And of course, I get the advantage. And so then I give Riccard the advantage so that I could pull the idol, which I'm like, my dude, like, if you really wanted it that bad, then why didn't you pull the idol? But that's a whole other thing. We're not gonna touch that. So I pull the idol, I give him my vote so that, you know, he can vote, use my vote to vote. Cause if once I pull that idol, if I have the extra vote, none of them count. I don't have it. I have to transfer, right? So I give it to Riccard, and then Riccard promises he's gonna give it back. You know what I mean? Which was like, just so ironic, right? Like, no, I know he's not about to sun me on national television after I got this from freaking JD, right? So we get back and we have that conversation at night, and that conversation went for a while, like us just going back and forth about it. And so to the end of the conversation, I was just like, you know, Riccard, keep the advantage. It's fine. You know, I don't want it that bad. Like, because at that point I was like, you're not gonna last long in this game anyways, because we're gonna get to the merge and people are not gonna like you. I just knew that. I was like, it is what it is. So then I go on my walk, which, you know, where you go for production to do your confessionals. So one of the, and it's just, I never thought this, like, you know, I wasn't even aware of it. I'm hungry, you're not thinking about it. But one of the producers says like, dang, like Riccard promised that he was gonna give you back the, you know, the advantage. Like, isn't it kind of messed up that he, you know, doesn't give it back to you? And I was like, you're right. It is messed up that he doesn't give it back to me. So then I go back to camp and I'm like, Riccard, I want my advantage back, right? So then he goes on his walk and they say to Riccard, I find this out after, they say to Riccard, man, Shan took it really hard that you wouldn't give her back the advantage. Like, do you really think you can trust somebody who's that volatile? And I was like, oh my gosh. So of course, production's doing all that they can to get the best stories, right? And they do, they're fantastic. But if I ever play again, they're not my therapist. Like they're partially in some ways you're just the camera, right? I see you now, I see you. But definitely I feel like they created a little bit of smoke there between us, and it worked. It was brilliant, it worked. And so, but I wasn't leaving to go to the merge without having the advantage back. No, in this game, you take everything for yourself, right? And I know that Riccard is just as cutthroat as I am. So I was like, no, I want it back. And luckily, and it was a good move because taking it back, because we got split up right after that, you know what I mean? And I was off in numbers. So it was JD's advantage, and then it became mine, and then it was Riccard's for a hot second, and then I got it back. So that's what happened. But Riccard would not let it go, and like to the point of like, I'm like, fine, like we'll use it for the Nasir vote, but I didn't want to, you know, but whatever. Shan doesn't listen. I'm not even gonna touch it. I'm not even touch it.
Let's talk about the papaya moment, because a lot of people, you know, people were so divided. They're like, it's just papaya. But I'm like, in a game like Survivor, that can be so detrimental to a person's game. So let's just talk about that moment and unpack why something like that could be really bad for your game.
I mean, Liana was sitting right there when it all went down. Like, if she was there for the whole thing, I think she almost hit him, right? Like, she kind of tapped him. But like, what people don't know, and I'm gonna put this out there, what people don't know is after the merge feast, like, I probably wouldn't have snapped as hard over the papaya had this not happened. After the merge feast, we got a bag of rice, right? Which, you know, we got this little bag of rice, and we made it. Tiff and Sydney wanted to put fish in the rice and boil the fish with the rice, which made the rice just taste awful, but whatever, different people, different strokes, different folks, right? So we're eating this fishy rice, and it's all that this is the first time I'm having a meal, right? Riccard comes back from the merge feast, and he sits down beside me. He's like, oh, is that Survivor rice? I'm like, yeah, it's rice. And he puts his finger in my rice and takes a bite out of my rice without asking. So then, it was like 2 days later that the papaya thing happened, and I was sure as hell not gonna let that go, because it's like food politics 101. Don't tell me you're a super fan of the show and you gonna come take like a bite of the little bit of food that we got and you just had a feast. Like, dude, that's not cool. You just had grilled cheese and chips. Your belly is full. You know what I mean? And we're over here trying to eat papaya that ain't that right. That's probably gonna block us up, which it did to me, you know? And it's like, it's not fair. It wasn't right. And all those little clowns and all those little heads on Instagram and Facebook talking about, she took it too far. I challenge any of y'all to go 16, 17 days without eating and watch someone take the food, the little bit of fruit that you find on a tree after they've just had a grand buffet. You would lose your SHIT as well. But I mean, it was a lot, Shan. Like I cried. I mean, it was a lot. Like I was like, Liana over there, like, but I mean, I broke down, like Liana knows, like I broke down over some grilled cheese. I don't even eat cheese. I don't even eat bread. I'm a vegan and freaking, I lost it over some grilled cheese, like crying, like woo, woo, woo in the corner with Liana. I feel like Liana just cried me, like just sympathy cries, you know, like she's like, I've got to cry with her because it's clearly that bad, you know, so. Papaya Gate was bad. It was bad. And he's all over Twitter talking about, oh, I'm the Papaya King. I'm like, that's not cute. No, that's not cute. Like, that's not cute. Like,
okay, well, you know, you brought up Twitter, so we're just gonna go there. I was told that you guys don't follow each other anymore. Is there some tea there? What's going on? What's the tea? Because you know on Reddit, they're like all about who you guys follow, who you don't follow. What's the tea? I was told specifically, please get the tea.
It's like, I think like, I don't know, like, yeah, we don't follow each other right now. And that's probably more on me. Like, I just chose not to follow just because, like, I think with Riccard, like, he's so in the mix of everything that's happening, like wants to be, you know, like, I don't know, like on top of all the information and like just doing all the things. And when we first got back, like he was texting me all the time, and Survivor was still a big trigger for me in a lot of ways. And I just needed time to cool off from it. And like meeting with the Survivor production team and like doing these interviews, like these like kind of one-on-ones, like it was a lot. It was a lot that during that time. And he was just still really hype about the game in a lot of ways. And then like, I just felt like, I kind of felt like our relationship like was a little, like I felt like a little bit like he was a little bit of a clout chaser in some ways. And that was just, it was hard because it was like, whenever I was having a really great moment on Survivor, like he was like, oh, like wanted to like kind of like co-tweet or like be a part of it. But if I was being dragged, then he wasn't for it. And like, I'm like, you know, if I see you and I don't speak with you, like I don't with you kind of thing. Like, you know, it's like, I flex like that. Like if I don't really, you know, feel like I can kind of, and Liana knows, it's like, I think if I don't really feel like I can trust you one-on-one, that I'm really not going to pretend online that that's what it is. Like I am a real one. And I will be fully honest about, you know, the things. And just like, if it's not real in our iMessages, then it's not going to be real on Instagram or Twitter. And I'm not going to pretend like everything's okay. And I just felt like, you know, Riccard was like all kind of whispering in my ear, like, let's do Amazing Race together. Like that was the big thing. Let's do Amazing Race together, you know? And then my boyfriend sent me a tweet that he had on his Instagram where he's like, oh no, I want to do it with Zandy. You know what I mean? And here's the thing, I probably wouldn't have done Amazing Race with Riccard, but it was just like, it's just, he pivots to whoever's hot. And that to me just signals someone that's not completely trustworthy. And I have a bad pattern like of just now it's getting personal. I have a bad pattern in my own life of like moving forward in like connections and friendships and relationships with people who signal red flags all the time. And like for me, Riccard gave me a gift in that like he has taught me through the game of Survivor, post game, into social media, that like once, like Maya Angelou said it, like when someone tells you who they are, like believe them the first time, you know? And like, I felt like Riccard kind of used me, never once said thank you, like for me carrying his behind through the game, like because people wanted him out, you know? And like, and then like, you know, and then on a podcast I saw on his story, like kind of dragged me. And I was like, are you serious? Like you really want to put stuff out there? And I hit him up about it. Like, I'm letting you know, like, this is not cool. And then when I saw the whole thing on Twitter, I was like, that's not cool. So I just, you know, I don't fuck with Riccard, bottom line, I just don't anymore. And I wish him the best. I'll always have like love from my heart, but this is just not people that's not like a person I want in my circle. So hard to talk about.
I heard that you had a loved one's visit in a way.
A loved one's visit? You mean on the island?
Did you get a cell phone video?
Did I get a cell phone? Oh my gosh, yes, okay. So Pizza Under the Stars. I wish this is the one thing that I wish was shown. I told Liana about it when I got back to camp, but I had to tread soft because it's like, you know, how do you tell someone back at camp that they get? But I told her, I was like, your family probably misses you. They probably sent you a beautiful video too. You'll probably get it after the game. But like, I told her like we went on the Pizza and the Stars and like we sit down for pizza, and then all of a sudden I just start hearing my dad talking and my best friend. Like I hear these sounds and I hear Jason. Like I hear baby, your banana's beautiful. And I was like, that's Jason. Like that's Jason. So then they play these sound effects, and then like Xander hears his family and Heather, which I don't know why they were on the challenge with us. And Riccard hears, his family, and we're like all going crazy. And then they play these like videos in front of us, and it's our loved ones and it's our family members. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing Xander's family. I'm seeing Heather's family. I'm seeing Riccard's family, and my block got played last, and I see Jason, and I see my dad and Tabitha, and I'm like, oh my God. So it was like, because of COVID, we didn't get the in-person, but had COVID not been a thing, I would have got to Loved Ones Challenge. And that was my biggest thing. And my biggest thing on my bucket list was, I want to get to Loved Ones Challenge. I want to get to Loved Ones Challenge. I just want my dad to come out. But COVID, the planes weren't flying in and out. So we had to settle for videos, which was fine. I wish that they had shown that, but here's the thing. That was the episode. That was my death episode. And there was so much happening strategically that episode, ironically, right? And it was such a beautiful episode. Like I know the different kind of vote outs and the different kind of edits that people could get. And I'm just so grateful to the team that I felt like they saw my gameplay and they saw who I was enough to like showcase my story and to give me an arc that was like representative of who I am in real life. And I was just really honored by that. So even though I wanted it to be aired, I'm glad it got cut out for, I think it was important for America to see the Shan cry about, 2020, because we all were so very confused, but I think that it was good that he got that moment. It was good to see, Riccard finally making a move on his own, because honestly, none of the moves were his, and so, and then seeing Liana talk about it all, and like, it was a great episode. So it's like, I can't be mad at the fact that they didn't show it, but I wish it did air.
Early on, we see you, and Liana, I would love if you can chime in on this as well. We see you pointing Erica out as a strategist. And I know a lot of people that watched it, the audience didn't feel pre-merged that they got a lot of Erica's game. Why did people feel that Erica was such a strategist? Because I felt like we didn't get to see a lot of that early on.
I don't know that truthfully, and Liana, you can correct me on this. I don't know that I felt like she was a strategist per se. Like, I didn't feel like she was super savvy or strategic, but what Erica had was like, she was quiet and she was a little stealthy, like, and like, she would say little things here and there. And I was just very aware of her. Like, I just, and at night we would talk and people would share stories, and some of the stuff that she said, I was like, that's really interesting. Like, that's a very interesting thing that's for someone to do. Like, it's not a quiet person that's like that, like just listening. And I would like often talk about like how Erica needed to be. I mean, Deshaun saw it early on too, I think in some ways, and he wanted to throw the challenge to get her out. But I was really onto Erica very early on. And I said, she's going to go to the end, and not because it's good gameplay, but because she's just going to keep sneaking by. And of course, it didn't go that way, but I'll let Liana speak to it because she probably has better insight in that area probably.
Well, no, but I see your point too, but I think Erica, there is something to be said about the game that she played, whether it was very, it was very under the radar, right? Like, it's not like she had relationships with everybody on the beach. She definitely chose wisely. And she explained that in the final tribal, right? I think her gameplay is very unique. It wasn't flashy. It's very under the radar. It was very stealthy. But like something went on, like when we got to merge, everyone that was, on Louva was like, Erica. And so that was like that was what was on everyone's mind. I think that's because they did see her as that way to be stealthy enough to get to the end, having the minimal relationships that she did have. But that in itself, can be considered strategy. And the biggest thing about Erica's game is she knew in the real world how she was perceived, right? Like in the boardroom, no one's like, oh, this is the one that's running our meeting. Like, no one saw her that way. So she used that to her advantage. And my biggest thing is like, with I think a lot of at Final Tribal, a lot of people, kind of were saying, Xander was robbed in some way or that type of thing. Like, you have to give Erica credit for the game that she played, right? And what she was able to convey to the jury at Final Tribal Council, right? Like, why was it that, Xander wasn't able to answer that question around kind of social wherewithal and that kind of knowledge in the game? He didn't have it. And so despite him playing the knowledge as power advantage and all those things, like, what did he do in the game? What was so outstanding? Was it better than Erica's, right? So in that sense, I think, Erica, despite the fact that it was stealthy and she didn't have connections with everybody, and it wasn't Shan's game, it wasn't like that type of game, it was still her game. And there's something to be said about it and how she was able to communicate it in the end and have that social wherewithal to know how other people were reading her. So I give her credit in that aspect. And I really just like the whole thing around, like Xander was robbed in some way. Like, that discredits from the fact that she was a winner. Why was she a winner, and what was your gameplay, right? So I do take issue with that. And I think, I agree with what you said, Shan, too, but there's also certain things that I think she knew about that helped her win the game as well. But it was stealthy and under the radar and all that. True, yeah. My biggest thing with Erica and why I had respect for her is like, she chose to vote out me instead of Riccard, knowing that Riccard was a bigger threat, but she was thinking 3 steps ahead, like, oh, Liana might, she does have numbers with Danny and Deshawn, potentially she might not like them, but she has those numbers, right? So for her to be able to be thinking 3 steps ahead like that, like, I respect that for you, and you got me out of the game at that point in time, because had I been able to make it a little step further, I might have got you, right? So that's the type of forward thinking that I think is important, and I think that she had that, and just I take huge issue with the whole connotation of being robbed. In some essence, he brought her with him. That's strike 1. I'm going to ask you a question, explain the hell out of it, and then you have my vote. Didn't do that. You don't have my vote. Deshawn, you don't have my vote either, because you couldn't explain to me why at 8 it made sense to vote out Shan. Erica, you played a hell of a game. You have my vote. That's it. Like, no one was robbed.
Let's segue, because Liana is hot right now. Let's segue to your individual game, Liana, and talk about this complicated relationship that you have with Xander. Where did that rivalry start? And, do you still hate his face?
The funniest thing is that I think me saying I hate his face is like the first interaction y'all get to see with me and Xander. Like, they don't show us interacting at all up until that point. So you're like, what? Why do you hate his face? But no, I think that a big part of that is the way this season was. There was a lot of advantages, and you don't get to see the camp life, right? So for me and Xander's relationship, when I first met Xander, we had a mutual friend that I knew from U Chicago. So I was like, oh my God, like, that's so cool. He's a cool person. Maybe I can work with him. But the first time he gets to camp after he does the water challenge, he's like, if we find an idol, like, it's going to be a community idol. We're all going to work together. Like, he was like this kumbaya guy. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's interesting. All right, cool. But like, I'm just going to keep my eye on you. Cool, whatever. Then I think like they show the clip where he goes left to where he finds the idol and I go right. And mind you, when he goes left and I go right, I'm doing the exact same thing on the other side of the island, right? Like, I'm looking for the idol as well. But then, he finds it. So it's fine, whatever. When he does find the idol, he tells Evie and Voce, but then for whatever reason is really adamant about the fact that he doesn't want me to know about his advantage and idol. He tells Tiff, but Evie really has to push him to tell me that he has the idol. He does not want me to know about it. So from very early on, I understand that Xander is someone that does not want to work with me. He sees me as a threat. He's not a number for me. So, then we get to, I knew right off the bat, I did not want to keep Xander around. The Voce vote happens all day up until 10 minutes before tribal council. Evie and Tiff are like, yes, it makes sense to vote out Xander. All of a sudden, 10 minutes before tribal council, something changes. Tiff is like, it's going to be me. He's going to be, if we don't vote for Voce in some weird construed way, it's going to be me. Is flipping out. And then Evie is also like, I would prefer to keep Voce too, and is really strong in that too. So I'm like, what is going on? Like, the whole day and up until 10 minutes before tribal council, now y'all want to switch the vote. But at that point, what I thought going into the game is like, I don't want to, if it's not me at this point, I don't want to get myself tangled in anything. If it's not me, fine, we'll vote. That's it. And we ended up voting out Voce, and the biggest regret in the game by far. So Voce's out. Now it's 4 of us, and I know we're low in numbers. There's 3 of us, and Xander's the only guy in our tribe. And so I'm like, in the case that we, do lose an immunity challenge, which is highly likely, I don't want Xander to feel uncomfortable at all. I want him to feel extremely comfortable so that none of us 3 end up getting voted out, me and Evie and Tiff. And so, and like Evie, I think it's really important that you kind of befriend Xander, that you create a close bond with him so that he doesn't feel endangered in case that we do lose an immunity challenge. And so the entire time at camp, I'm underplaying me and Evie's relationship so that they can have a really tight relationship with Xander. And I'm just kind of like constrained. I'm just like, I feel like I'm not even playing the game because I'm just so kind of like subduing myself to make sure that Xander is comfortable this entire 7 days before the merge. And so, we keep winning and, never have the opportunity to vote out Xander. And at that point, we get to the merge and I meet Shan, and I'm like, hold on a second. Within my alliance, I have Evie, who's tight with Evie, with Tiff and Xander. That's relationships for Evie's game. I don't trust Xander. I don't necessarily trust Tiff. what do I have? What is my strategy? So really going into merge and after meeting Shan, it was about creating new life in the game for me. I don't trust Xander because Xander doesn't trust me. I don't really trust Tiff. The only person that I really trust is Effie. So the entire merge game for Liana is about creating new life in the game, creating new connections, trying to kind of salvage my game. And so that's like that entire kind of lead up of me and Xander's kind of like saga, but you don't really get to see that because there wasn't a lot of camp life kind of going on in the edit. But you know, he was gunning for me just as much as I was gunning for him. And so the edit doesn't necessarily portray that, but like that was me trying to protect myself in the game.
One of my questions was what made you make the decision to break away from Yasa and build new relationships? So thank you for answering that already. Do you think Xander was maybe like romantically intimidated by you? Because I did see a video where he was like really feeling you, girl. So was that something that you felt on the beach? Was there some like tension?
No, that is so funny. So I don't think I've ever like shared this before, but the first night that we were at camp, we were all just kind of like, I went away from everybody to like meditate because that was something I was doing early on. I was like, I'm gonna go into the game and meditate. Like it was my thing, but I only did it in like quiet times and it wasn't a big deal when I could still keep my eye on everyone. So it was after the water challenge, and I just like was meditating, and then I come back and sit with the group, and then there's like, oh, like you meditate? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, like that's super cute. And I was like, oh yeah, like cool, like all right. So I like picking up on that. And then like we're in the shelter and we're all just like talking and stuff. I think we're talking about like relationships and stuff. And we're all laying down, like about to go to bed. And Xander was like, oh, like Liana, do you have a boyfriend? And I was like, no. And then like we were like, it wasn't like random like that. Like we were all talking about it. We were asking for people, and then it was like my turn. And he was like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? And I was like, no. So I was picking up on that, but I was like, also mind you, like I was, you know, talking to someone at home at that point. We weren't like official or anything, but I just like, it was not on my mind at all. So that was kind of like the precursor. So I knew there was something, like he was kind of giving those signals and stuff, but I was just like, and then at that point, once I didn't know why, but for whatever reason, he didn't trust me with the idol and things. So I was like, he might have a crush on me, he might not, but he doesn't trust me at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter, like he needs to go. So it was really funny though, when Shan was there and he said the thing about, if she only knew how I felt about her, like that was so funny. I was like, and then Shan was acting up on me. She was like, girl, he had a crush on you. I was like, oh my God.
because Lauren, they were at each other's throats so much, and I wanted to use Xander's, I wanted to use his extra vote.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. So I was like, I just need them to get along. Like, I just need them to get along. And, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of advantages, and the knowledge is power advantage, and you both can answer this question. In terms of Survivor, do you feel like an advantage like the knowledge is power advantage is fair? And then Liana, I obviously want to ask you about your thought process of how you played it. But do we feel like the KIP advantage is fair in terms of Survivor?
Is it fair? Like, what is fair? This game is psychotic. Like, I don't know. I mean,
why is the silence so loud?
I did not think I mean, Liana, you go, you take it.
I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's unfair, like inherently? Like, I mean, the fact that you can turn back time, like,
that's unfair. That's unfair.
Right? Like, so was it the most unfair of the season? No. That's the thing, like all the advantages were so out there. The fact to activate 3 idols, you have to say this ridiculous phrase and everyone, like, it was just like everything was out there, you know what I mean? So it's hard to say in a season like this what was fair and what's unfair, right? Because everything is just so out there. I don't know, what do you think?
I think that I have a lot of thoughts on the advantages and the changing of the game. Like, I really do. I think it was like a big miss on optics the year that you go to 50% BIPOC, that you change the game completely. Like, that was a really weird thing. And I think that the one thing that I felt was really unfair was the changing back of time. That just, because, well, one, if you're going to change back time, then the people that didn't get the merge feast should get the merge feast. Can we talk about that? But then also, I thought that it felt like a lie. It didn't feel like game. It felt like a big lie. But I think knowledge is power. I think it's fair. I thought that the idols being activated, that was clever, and I thought that was fair. yeah, my beef really is just about a lot of the change. Like, yeah, I think that just, yeah.
Liana, did you ever consider taking anyone else's advantage besides Xander's?
No. So, cause the 3 idols, it was Shan. So that's absolutely not, I'm not doing that. And then Nasir. And the thing with Nasir is like, this man was the first person that fed me when like he knew the land. He made us breadfruit. Like Nasir, like he calls me sis. There was no way I was taking like all of the other, like it was just not an option. And so, yeah, like Xander's the only real one that I was going to take. And at that point, like I said, I'm suppressing myself on Yasa for 8 days for this kid. Like, I'm like so over it. And the fact that, you know, everybody knew about like the knowledge is power advantage. Like if everybody has the knowledge, you don't have the power. So at what point does this become a liability? I need oh my God, why is funny? No, at like what point does it actually become a liability? So like for me, there was a lot of things that were on my mind on that evening in order to think about even playing it. And the fact that like when I turn the corner and I walk in and I see Xander putting it in his, like so many things happened at particular times in order to make me think that that idol was on his body. Like that idol was on his body. I had Shan check to see if it was the real idol, right? Like so many things that went into it. So I was like, this is a gamble either way. Like what if, for example, I turn to Evie and be like, Evie, do you have the idol? And it's not on their body, then, you know, then it looks a certain type of way too, right? So there was a lot to consider. And at some point, it was just like, you know, you got to play. And so that's what I felt like. Again, it might've been a premature move, but I was gambling at that point. I knew I was gambling. And, you know, high risk, high reward. It could have gone my way. Who knows? So it was really tough. And I wanted to play hard. It was maybe a little bit premature, but I did the best that I had with the information that I had. And I thought it was on his body. Like I genuinely thought that. So yeah, I mean, that was a really, really tough point, a tough move in the game for me. But it also taught me so much too. And yeah, I mean, it just changed completely changed my outlook on the game. Like if I could ever do it again, it just changes so much of how I would kind of think about it and the strategy behind it and all that good stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to be said behind that move for sure.
When Shan accidentally let it slip that you had an advantage, did you have to do more damage control than what we saw? And did you two have a conversation about it? Because I was surprised, Liana. I thought you were going to go back to Shan and be like, yo, you just told my advantage.
No, because like I said, like at that point, the bridge with Yasa was already beginning to burn. And like I said, I'm creating new life in the game. So it doesn't make sense with my one new ally to be like, oh, like there was just no room for that. It did have a major impact on my game. Like there's no question there. The damage control that I had to do, I think, you know, I think like I had to tell Tiff, I feel like I could have maybe shifted the story that I told to Tiff, but at that point it was just, it was like, at what point do you just kind of, at that point I didn't know how long my relationship with Yasa was going to be for, like how long it was going to last. And so I told Tiff, Evie was my number one. Like Evie, when we got to camp, the first thing I say to Evie is, you know, I think you're really genuine. I want to work with you. If you don't write my name down, I'm not going to write your name down. Evie says the same thing to me. And like, we're like this, you know? So Evie was the one that I felt like I had to salvage really the relationship with. Tiff, not so much. Like I said, like it wasn't necessarily, I had the, like, my relationship was kind of through Evie, then Tiff, you know? So I did have to do damage control. And I think, you know, it would have been crazy to, you know, kind of pull them in a bit more and kind of like squash the Xander thing. But again, it was just like, given what you had, and things are moving at a mile a minute, like this is the merge, people are just now meeting each other, there's new dynamics, people are talking, like there was a lot going on. And so there was just a lot to weigh and things were changing like this. Like, so I did have to do damage control and it was tough. It was definitely tough.
You're so mature, Liana. Like I would have been like, girl, you said what in front of who? I wouldn't have been able to keep it in. So Shan, when it happened, were you like, oh no, the food, it's day 16, I haven't eaten, please forgive me?
Okay, the food for sure, but I remember it differently, but I remember it differently. I really do. But it's like, I think what Liana's saying is absolutely true. It's not that I wasn't aware that Tiffany was there, but at that point in the game, I really thought that Uwa was still trying to work with Yasa. So like when I said that, at least I don't remember, but I could be very wrong on this. Like, I don't remember us not being good with Tiff at that point, because remember, Lee, you pulled me aside after that and you were like, why'd you say it in front of Tiff? And I was like, what? And then remember you explained to me that whole thing where she said that she wanted you to give me the advantage.
I don't know. I just thought like when we left, when we left the track, like, bottom line, I just thought like, like with like the advantages and stuff, like I was not going to tell, like, no matter what I had, like I wasn't going to tell, anybody, like that was between you and me. And so I remember telling you, like, I wasn't going to tell them like the truth. Yes, we were going to be working together, but that doesn't mean I was going to give them, all the cards in my hand, right? Like I wasn't going to tell them exactly what I had.
Shan, you thought it was bridging a gap between Ua and Yasa, not realizing that was for y'all. That was your knowledge is power. Okay.
But 100% my mistake, 100% my mistake. But at that point, it wasn't Danny. And at that point, Danny and Deshawn hadn't come back from the merge feast yet. We hadn't had the conversation about the Black Alliance. So at that point, right.
Well, no, like before they even left for the merge feast, they had brought up the fact. Oh no, they had to have come back from it. But yeah, so that wasn't even on the table yet. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying at that point, Liana and I hadn't like locked in with Danny and Deshawn that we were gonna be a 4. So at this point, I'm just thinking me, Riccard, Liana, and Uwa numbers, let's take down Lulu. That's what I was thinking. So people are like, did you slip up and let the cat out the bag? I didn't slip up. I just thought Tiffany was in on the, but then I realized that I messed up right away when Liana said to me, why did you say in front of Tiff? And I was like, I thought we trusted these people. And then she said, no, we don't trust Tiff. I can't trust Tiff. But she said, I feel like I could trust Evie. But then at that point, I'll be honest, when I heard that Liana was like, now things weren't good with her and Yasa, then I wanted to do everything I could to put more space between Tiffany, Evie, and Liana. Because I wanted to.
That's what I'm saying. Like that was very present. I feel like there was a lot of things happening, right? Like, I have this knowledge is power advantage. That doesn't necessarily, Survivor doesn't necessarily mean I was going to tell everyone about it. Like I knew it was between you and me. So it was just about keeping it tight. And like, even if I had, they could be numbers, but that doesn't mean I was going to tell them everything and give them, everything that I had. Right. So it was trying to keep that close to my chest and also trying to navigate, okay, what does this look like now that we're at merge? I'm observing how Tiff is interacting with people. I'm observing how Evie is interacting with people. And it's like the amount of time, like when we hit merge, like the amount of time to get all of those data points and to get that, but then to have like that bomb drop on it is like, oh crap. Like now, my, numbers, my alliance from Yasa, even though it was evolving, like it didn't have time to kind of fully form until like a bomb was dropped on it. And I was like, okay, like, you know what I mean? So it's hard. Like I'm saying, like, Shan's a brilliant player, right? Like, so there's just a lot of pieces kind of going on. And if you don't directly communicate exactly on something like this advantage that took both of us, like something like that could happen. And you don't really understand the relationships or the dynamics. Definitely my fault though. Like I'll take all the blame. Like I screwed over my little sister on the show. Like that was my mess up. Like, like 100%. I didn't know that I was letting, I should have known better. You're right. I should have been like, at the end of the day, I should have just talked to you first about it one-on-one. And maybe that was the food. But that part, like but I was glad that it created smoke between Tiffany and Liana because. I know, because then I was trying to fight. Shan's like, she's talking about you, Liana. I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, Shan is like, she's talking about, like, you cannot trust her. I was like, no, like, I really do. Like, you trust her card. She's like, no, Liana. I was like, oh my Lord. Like, it was just, I'm telling y'all, like, I have never been more perplexed in my life. Like, little Liana is sitting on the beach, looking out of the ocean, like, please, God, what is going on?
Because Liana was close with Ev. With Ev, but then I heard from Deshawn that Evie was throwing out, and from one other person, I think Sid, that Evie was throwing out my name and Riccard's name at the well. So I was like, okay, well, then I just need to smoke this bridge between Liana and Ev, because like it's one or the other. Like somebody's got to go. Like, you know what I mean? Not her and not Liana. Like Liana wasn't going anywhere, but I was just like, I can't have them being friends, because, you know, so then I was like, Liana, you can't trust Ev. You cannot trust Ev. And she's like, really? I really like Evie. And I was like, no, you cannot trust her. She's in Xander's pocket. But she was, I blew it up more than I needed to. And
they, them.
I blew, yes, they, them. Sorry, my bad.
You're good.
Let's go back to questions for both of you. We've touched on it a little bit about the advantages. On the beach, were you like really confused about all the advantages and who had what? Because I found as a viewer, it was hard for me to keep up. Did you feel like there were just too many advantages, or were you like, you know, we're playing Survivor, this is the new era, we're just gonna roll with the punches. Whatever advantages come, they come.
I feel like everything was so out in the open, so we knew where everything was. Maybe the hardest thing to keep track of was the extra votes, I would say. But like the idols, we knew where those were, and yeah.
I knew where everything was at every moment. I made it my duty to know. Like at one time, production was like, "Give me a rundown." I was like, "This person got this." So then I was like, I just had a running tally in my head. But I will say that, like when JD comes back and tells the story, like everyone's like, "Oh, the prisoner's dilemma." I was like, "Oh yeah, the dilemma." What is that? Like, I did not even know. And then I get to the wheel at the island and I see just two options. And I'm like, I don't even understand how they could have complicated this. Like it really was like, there were so many moments that I was like, I don't know why they added this. What is this about? You know, like, what's the theme? It wasn't clear to me. So it wasn't, I felt like sometimes I was confused by some of the advantages. Like, why, you know, like I had to think about, like, can they move the idol? You know, if she has knowledge is power, can they move it? Is there a caveat? But I don't remember seeing anything on my paperwork saying I had to, you know, I couldn't pass it or couldn't whatever, you know?
What about like the shot in the dark? What was the feeling about that?
I lost that thing like 6 times.
It's like, yeah, like it was just, yeah. And then our first interaction with the shot in the dark is seeing it take Sydney out of the game. So we're like, what the hell? Like, you know, it was just, yeah.
It's like this weird thing, because it's like you only do it if everybody hates you, like, and you know you're going home. There's no hope. But Sydney had hope. It just didn't make any sense for her to play it. And yeah, like Liana said, like it was like the first time she plays it, we're like, oh, not safe. Well, guess you know,
I'm not playing it. Yeah,
I'm not playing it, because you lose your vote. You lose your vote.
And when I went out, that was a consideration for me too. Like I was like, I know I'm on the hot seat, but like maybe this vote is me in the game versus not in the game. So I don't want to play the shot in the dark, right? So
it's a risk.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't feel like it's like when Jeff says it's a Hail Mary, like take that literally. Like it's the Hail Mary. It's the last thing you do at the end of the game, because your vote is everything, and it really does. It could pivot the needle like so much, you know.
Would you have turned back time if you were in Erica's position?
It depends on where the people were. It would depend on, like, if you give me a lineup, like who's where. Because I would have just taken, I honestly, I might have taken not safe if all my people were safe and I knew that they were also able to vote at tribal. You know, so it just depends on where the people are at. But Erica she knew she was at, and I guess that speaks to her gameplay. You know, she knew she was at the bottom of Luvu.
You could change anything about your games. What would you change and why?
I think it would be like, it would have just been me and Liana to the end instead of Danny and Deshawn. Like that was just it was like a 4-ring circus. It felt like a lot was happening. And I mean, maybe lock in, but I don't know. Like, I don't know. I wish I would have, it's so hard. Like, but I watched Jamal's interview with, I watched his Know-It-Alls with Rob Has a Podcast. You know, and he talked about how, you know, we fought so you guys could get on the show so you could play your game and not feel like you have to work together, right? That was his angle. It was really hard for me to hear that. I had mixed emotions about that, but I really, you know, when I was out there, that wasn't even like as an activist, that wasn't even like a possibility. Like I was like, no way, like we need to stick together. Like 2020 was hell. Like we need to send her here, right? And stay together as a people on the show and like bring home a win, but also show that like in a world where, you know, in a game where systems aren't there to oppress, like we can actually work together to do something amazing, right? But in hindsight now, I almost wish I would have played kind of like my own game, you know? And I felt robbed of that. I feel like because I got locked into something that I don't feel like everyone took as seriously. So that's the thing that I would have changed, potentially.
Mine is similar. I think, you know, it's hard. Like I went into that game doing a lot of kind of like groundwork for myself and knowing my values and playing very passionately. And I have to say, I think the best players struggle with this, but it's like the balance between like your values and who you are outside of the game and just like the freaking game. Like this is a game for $1 million. And at some point, like I'm saying, like me and Shan, you know, we're playing with our hearts in some essence and our values. And the cool thing is like me and Shan's relationship, like you said, like if we were locked in just like me and you, like there would have been, you know, we could have just like cut and keep going. So I think like for me, if I had the opportunity to play again, to play differently, it would be a lot less emotional and a lot more, I'm going to cut your throat and keep it moving. Like, to be honest, like just pure strategy and conscious of the fact of how emotional it gets out there and to just kind of like suppress it until like you're to the end. Cause there's really, honestly, it's so hard to carry that along with really trying to just be the best in the game. And so I think that's something that the best players struggle with. And that's something that was really, really prevalent and clear to me leaving the game is like, you got to make a choice and you got to make sure that you're good with that choice through the end. And I think strategy is the most beautiful and awesome part of the game. And I would have wanted to pay more to that for sure.
What is Ponderosa life like? How's Pondy? Do you guys love it? I know your Ponderosa was different than mine. So what is Ponderosa life like in season 41?
I did not do well at Ponderosa. Ponderosa for me was like, I wanted to get out like as fast as I could. Like I just wanted to get out of Ponderosa. It just was toxic. And it was like, I think a lot of people were like having fun, like in some ways, like playing games and like, I don't know, but I felt like I kept getting a slow, steady trickle of information that was just, it was re-triggering every single time that someone came in. And so there was like never a moment where I felt like I could be completely calm. You know, it was always like, oh, so the one person I thought I could trust, like, oh, that wasn't it. And then, oh, so this person that wasn't it. Like, it just kept feeling like, what the hell happened out there? Because I really didn't have a lot of answers when I got voted out. And yeah, Ponderosa wasn't fun. I mean, the food was great-ish, you know. I had like maybe 5 Snickers a day, but other than that, I just wanted to go home.
I always tell people that there's a game, a whole nother game that happens at Ponderosa that you have to navigate through, and it's very, very tricky. Liana, how was Ponderosa for you?
Yeah, I think I wasn't prepared for what Ponderosa was, I think like, I mean, Shan was really hurting, so that it kind of hurt me too. Like watching, like coming out of it, like I said, like I knew the game was the game and the game happened to me. And so I wasn't really ready to kind of unpack and be like, who said what to who and why am I here right now? And so I think when I came out, you know, even Shan, like the thought like crossed Shan's mind, like, Liana, did you vote me out? And I was like, no, like I would never do that. I wrote Erica. And so it was so bizarre to be like, to come out and just to have all of these like questions and then afterthoughts. And it's like just a lot of like hindsight bias and a lot of just like, well, I could have done it this way. And it was just like very painful. And honestly, I was just like, I just want to go home to like people that like love me. Like, I want to like just hug my brothers. I want to hug my mom. I want to hug my dad. Like, you know, I want to see like that person, like, you know, my person that I hadn't been talking to in forever. Like, it was a really weird, hard time, just because everyone was so, you know, deep in the emotion that, you know, you have to go and vote for these people in the end. And so it was tricky to kind of, you still have to stay present in some way to, you know, make an educated vote as a juror. And so it's like you're trying to disconnect from the game, but you still have to plug into the game and deal with everybody that comes out afterwards. And like, it was explosive a lot of times. You're like, well, damn, like I just want to get away from you. Like, you know, like, so it was hard.
Going into Final Tribal, did you have a winner pick? And were you open to being persuaded? You were.
I'd say yes. I think I had the strongest resistance towards Deshaun. I felt like his game was just emotional and like just sporadic and just like, it made no sense. The one question that I asked Deshaun that didn't air is like, why did that make sense at 8 to vote out Shan? How did that benefit your gameplay? And I think even it was a complicated, you know, thing towards Shan too, because like even before I had like that like big speech or whatever, I talked about the thing, you know, in the context of like the white America watching, but what I was actually thinking at that time was like this dynamic of Black women sticking it out for y'all and y'all not pulling it out, but I couldn't go ahead and say that in front of white America, so I have the default to explaining what a Black alliance is, right? So like there's these complicated feelings towards Deshaun, and I'm like, explain it to me. And even when I get back, it's like some BS too, like not even like explaining why they did what they did, right? And I can't even get out of the game and explain it to Shan because it didn't make sense to me either. And so that was, for me, I was just like, it just doesn't make sense. It wasn't even good for your gameplay. And not even like just being like, you know, bitter at all. It's just like, how did that make sense for your game? And he couldn't answer that question. And so, you know, I was open. I think I was most resistant to Deshaun, but I was open to Xander, Erica, whoever could explain to me the pieces that I maybe didn't see. Like I was gonna, you know, fairly vote for you, but yeah, I definitely most resistance towards Deshaun, I would say.
Shan, what about you?
Yeah, like I think like I went into tribal, I mean, I really felt a lot of, I think during my time at Ponderosa, like, again, like what Liana's saying, like, I think like it's so hard because like before the game, like I wasn't like someone, and I don't think Liana was either, who was sitting on the sidelines during the marches, you know, like I was literally there present, you know, and I saw the disparity between the George Floyd crowds, you know, and the Breonna Taylor crowds, and how there was so many Black women on the front lines for, you know, Ahmaud Arbery and for George Floyd and the countless others that were shot, you know, and murdered, right? But when it came to the women, you know, like just Breonna Taylor, just seeing them just not there for us. So I was deeply triggered on like a whole other level. And Liana heard a lot of it, I think, at Ponderosa, unfortunately. But like when we got to towards the end, I think she and I had enough information to kind of just figure, like we just landed with like, was this for capital? Like, did you just play us kind of thing? Like, did you just say you were about something, but it wasn't really what you were locked into? And it was really jarring. So for me, like going into Final Tribal, I had leaning, but then I was like, okay, I still want to hear out Deshaun, you know, I still want to give him an opportunity to speak to this because, you know, everyone's playing a game. Riccard is still playing his game, even in Ponderosa. I mean, he came in and told me some stuff about Liana, like, you know, that was really, really hurtful. I can tell you that at Final Tribal Council, you know, I was very aware of the question that I was asking, and, you know, and the fact that, like we talk about, like the fact that a white audience was bearing witness to all of this stuff happening on national television. But bigger in my mind was like, I do want answers because I feel like I still don't have clarity, but also I want to give you an opportunity to speak to America about like kind of really why you decided to do this. I think a lot of people of color watching will have questions about it, right? And so when I asked that question, Deshaun, you know, he said his part and he responded, and I said, you know, congratulations on getting to Final 3. And then Liana dug in after that. I think Liana was like, but she jumped in on and was like, tell us how that makes sense. Like, why did you vote out Shan? Like, it didn't make any, we had the numbers. And then I think Riccard even chimed in at that part as well. And it felt like at that moment in they didn't show all this, but Final Tribal Council, because they didn't show all this, but in Final Tribal Council, Deshaun got to a part where he realized like I think we were onto it, like, you know, and he kind of went into a shutdown, like almost like again, another sulking mode, like he threw another tantrum in Final Tribal Council. It was like distracting to the point where Jeff had to call it out, but they cut all that out. So it's like, you know, that's probably what you were seeing, that moment there, right? Was like, there's even a moment that they didn't air where I was like, I said to Deshaun, like, you're sulking again in I said this to him, you're sulking again in Tribal Council, Final Tribal Council. You could win $1 million. Like, instead of sulking, just tell us your strategy, because you wronged us, but tell us what you did. Again, in sulking mode. Like, he's like, I feel like I can't say anything to sway anybody. It was the same old, like, baby, insecure, volatile mentality that we were getting again. And it was just, it just hammered home, like, I'm not voting for you. I do not want you to be the winner of this season, like in any capacity. So, you know, I was like, it was either going to be Erica or Xander. And then Xander just, you know, I think even before that, just, you know, Evie and Tiff were just sharing that, you know, he really didn't do much strategizing. Then he burned bridges with them when he didn't need to. He needed those numbers. That his strategy didn't make any sense to me. So Erica was a sure winner, you know, and I think that was the best move, was somehow, like, she knew that we gave everybody else no choice. Like, we would have to vote for her. And that was her move. I feel like there was no way it was bad. I think that final tribal council was bad.
When you both watched yourselves back, what was that like? Because I know when I watched it back, it was like day and night to what I actually experienced or what I felt I experienced. So when you watched it back, how did you feel?
It was honestly really, hard, because I think I was portrayed as kind of naive and just kind of like chasing Xander around the entire time, when there were so many deeper parts of my game, right? And so much more of like my thought process and interactions with people. And that was hard to kind of be like, oh, and based on the edit, like, I could see why, you know, people would think a certain way about my gameplay or strategy and stuff. And it's hard. I think Shan said it best, like, the person that I am on TV is not the person that I am in real life. And I think all the moments that you don't get to see is what makes a person. And you don't get to see that. So it was hard, because it's your dream and you're like, damn, like, that's how I'm going to be remembered. But like, you know, it is what it is, and you just move on, and it makes you stronger. Like, it makes you, you make peace with the game, you know, after Ponderosa, and you go home, and then you have to watch it back too, and you have to make peace with that too. And so that's what I had to do, and it made me stronger. And, you know, you just hear all the thoughts and perspective, and like the things that you're just like hoping, like, you know, is gonna comes up, and it's like, you know, damn, that happened too. So you make peace with it again, and you realize that the snippet of a person that people get is not who you are, and they don't know you, and that sucks, you know, like, they don't know you, but that's okay. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had a hard time, I think, watching myself this season. This might sound arrogant, but I don't mean it in this way. I just didn't really think I'd get that much screen time, you know, and it was hard talking with some of my castmates, because like every time I would bring something up, it was like, but you're getting like a great edit. You're all, it's like, it's a Shan show. But that's like, you know, that's also really hard, because that means that you're in the spotlight most of the time. And then, like, you know, there's a lot of criticism that follows. So it wasn't a great experience, to be honest with you. It was really hard. And I was blindsided by some of the things that were shared, like my family stories and stuff like that. And I didn't know when they were going to do. And yeah, it was all really beautiful. Like, everyone was like, it's so beautiful, right? But it's also still my life. And the math makes sense, because Ua was always going to tribal. And so it was like, okay, well, where's the story there? And I really was the center of a lot of the relationships on my tribe. So it makes sense why it was what it was, but it was still hard. For me, the hardest part was the Deshaun saying I wasn't listening to him. That was the hardest part to watch, because I really do feel like I listen to people. Like, that's what I do at work. You know, I spend a lot of time listening. With Deshaun, I read him so quickly as someone who was just very insecure, and like, that would just really need a lot from me to feel like he was absolutely seen in a game where it's moving so quickly. And I really tried hard after he explained to me what he was feeling, because I did hear him out and I felt bad. But then it became like a thing that it was on repeat, you know, and to the point where like I'm kneeling down in front of this man at tribal council, you know, and I'm saying, I'll do whatever you want to do. Like that's like, it's like I had his back. Like, I mean, I feel like I really had his back, and so did Liana. Like, we burned advantages to keep him in the game. Like, it didn't. And then like for him to, you know, kind of pull together this narrative that like I wasn't listening to him was just really, really hard for me. But you know, that was his experience, and I have to accept that. And like, I'll forever be sorry in terms of like, you know, him feeling that way. But that was hard, because like, yeah. Was I a bit bossy? Yes. I was a bit bossy, but I mean, I didn't come to sit on the beach. I didn't come to sit on my ass. I came to play the game Survivor. I mean, Liana and I would say to them often, like, let's vote Xander, you know? And their response, Danny Deshaun, all the time was, but he has an idol. And we were like, Exactly. Like, so let him play his idol. But it was just like the thinking on it just didn't make sense to me. And even when Danny comes to Ponderosa and tells me, like, I'm like, well, why did you go with them? Like, why did you vote me out? Like, why did you do this split? He's like, well, I came back to camp and they had 5 guns pointed at you. I'm like, I have an idol. I would have passed that thing so quick. We would have had a tie. I would have pulled Riccard during the tie. We would have talked. I would have pulled Riccard during the tie, or someone. You know what I mean? But it's like, it didn't make no one. And then we lost the numbers. I just that, you know, so I mean, I'm okay with how the edit was, yeah, for sure, but it was definitely hard watching it back, and just seeing that, yeah, it was hard.
Was there anyone's edit that surprised you?
I mean, the one thing that I said was, like, it was cool to see Shan running the camp at UA. Like, we talked about it on our trek or whatever, but it was fun to watch it back and to see how it went down.
It was so heartbreaking to see Liana miss that advantage in the fire. I will say that. Like, I saw that and I was like, and I think I texted you, I was like, Liana! I was like, I missed that. But it was early and she was sad, and I know the feeling, you know, of being sad in the morning on a tribe. So that was interesting to see. I think maybe Tiffany's edit was like, they kind of made her look a little like when she was pulling her hair out, and like, you know, then when she was laid up on the beam, and you know, the way she fell into the water, like all of that was like, that happened? And then Evie, remember when Evie was swimming in the wrong direction? Yes. Oh, that's so hilarious to me. But it wasn't surprising, I don't think.
The last thing I want to ask you both is, what advice do you have for future castaways?
Play your own game. Like, yeah, like we've marched, and we're marching out here. This is your escape from the real world. Go play your own game. Like, don't worry about the optics. Play your own game. All skin folk ain't kin folk. I'll just leave it there, and that's what it is, you know. So,
I would definitely agree. I think, like, you know, people that came before us, like, you know, crawled so we could walk so we could run, like, and neither option is wrong. Like, you have to play the game for you. You have to make a decision, right? Like I said, like, I make a decision. I was playing with my values, with passion. That was a decision I made, and I had to deal with the consequences. So whatever you do, like, make the decision for you and go in doing it. And don't change your game plan for anybody, right? Like, you gotta keep doing it. And so you can make a choice to, you know, make a certain, like, alliances are made on all types of different reasons. So you gotta make a decision for you, and that's it. And just own it. Like, no matter what, own your game, own the game that you play, right? No matter what, and keep playing it till you're blue in the face, till, you know, your torch is snuffed. Hopefully not, but like, you just have to, and don't come in thinking like you're gonna play like anybody else, because you're just not going to, and it's not gonna work out that way. Like, you can't, even if you have idols and perception, like, it, all of that goes out the window. It suddenly becomes you were chosen for a reason, and you play your game.
Yeah, and lean into it. Like, I remember, like, what got to me was the narrative, like, because Deshaun was like, you're not listening, and Riccard was like, you're not listening, and I was like, I'm gonna be portrayed out there as, like, you know, like, I'm being like bossy and not listening. But I should have been like, and so what the fuck? Like, go ahead and be that bitch. Like, just play the game, because that's what you came here for. You know what I mean? You didn't come here to be someone's number 2 or someone's number 4. Like, you came here to win, and, you know, never take your foot off the pedal. Like, just lean into all of that. And yeah, like, play with heart, because that's what's gonna make the game, like, memorable, and like those beautiful moments, like when you take a trek with someone that's like incredible, like, lean into all of that and have fun, like, go snorkeling, do all that, but then just like, be present, be on it, remember why you're there. Like, you don't have anything else to think about but this game. Like, you will never get this opportunity again, potentially, you know, except for a few. So just go and, like, play your heart out, you know, and leave it all out there and embrace it. You know your truth about who you are, but just embrace it out there, and you know, don't worry about the trolls.
That's great advice. Be that bitch. You heard it here first. Where can everyone keep up with you both as you journey through life?
Shan, you got it.
You need to keep up with Liana on Instagram. Okay,
Liana.
Keep up with her on Instagram, and she will stay on her Instagram game.
No, I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying.
Oh, I got you, girl.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
Liana.Wallace on Instagram, and on TikTok as well. Liana _Wallace as well. And yeah, follow me. And also I might be writing some pieces as well on a certain publication soon. So stay tuned for that. So yeah.
Shan, what about you? Where can we find you, girl?
Chantel M. Smith on Instagram, and I think it's the same on TikTok. And yeah, I'll be launching a Patreon with a podcast very soon, and I'm leaning into a little bit of acting and film and media. So, you know, if you want to be pastored by the Mafia Pastor, get on Patreon. That'll be launching in the next couple weeks. So, yeah.
Amazing.
We're out here. We're out
yes,
here.
You're in these streets. Yes, you are. I love it. I cannot wait to see what the future holds for both of you. You guys are both icons, legends, all of it. Thank you both for playing and for sitting down and talking to me and just being so transparent. It's so refreshing. You don't get it a lot in our world, so I really appreciate it. To everyone that's watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Lauren Ashley Beck. This is Life After Borneo. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. We have Tiffany from season 41 joining us next week. We'll see you guys next time.